I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't even blink when he said it. Security will escort you out. 15 years of my life, erased in one sentence. The room smelled like polished wood and arrogance. My boss didn't look at me when he said the words, like I was already gone. His fingers tapped on the table, impatient, as if firing me was just another meeting item before lunch. Your services are no longer required, he said coldly. Effective immediately. I nodded. That confused him. After 15 years, most men would break, cry, argue. I just stood up slowly, straightened my worn jacket, and smiled, soft, polite, defeated. Inside, something ancient woke up. As I walked past the glass walls, I could feel the stares. Whispers followed me like shadows. Can you believe it? After all these years? He looks finished. They were right about one thing. I looked finished. The elevator doors closed. My reflection stared back at me, tired eyes, slouched shoulders. A man the world had already written off. I loosened my tie with shaking fingers. They have no idea, I thought. I knew this day was coming. Because 3 months earlier, I'd found the email. Sent by mistake, not meant for me. Once we secure the offshore accounts, we terminate him. He knows too much. I remembered reading it again and again. My heart pounding so loud I thought the office could hear it. 15 years of loyalty, nights slept under my desk, missed birthdays, missed funerals, and this was my reward. That night I didn't go home. I sat in my car outside the building until midnight, watching the lights turn off floor by floor. I cried exactly once, quietly, like a man apologizing to himself. Then I started planning. Back in the present, security followed me out like I was a criminal. One of them avoided eye contact. The other smirked. I handed over my badge. Good luck, he said, not meaning it. I stepped outside into the rain, cold, heavy, cleansing. My phone buzzed, a message from HR. Your final paycheck will be processed within 30 days. I laughed out loud. 30 days. They thought I needed their money. I walked to a small cafe across the street, the one no executive ever noticed. Sat in the darkest corner. Ordered black coffee. Opened my laptop, the same old, scratched one they mocked me for keeping. The screen lit up. Folders. Timelines. Every illegal deal, every falsified report, every name that thought it was untouchable. I had copied everything long before they decided to destroy me. My hands were steady now. 15 years, I whispered. You trained me well. Across the street, my boss laughed with another executive, completely relaxed. Safe, victorious, I sipped my coffee slowly. Enjoy it, I thought. This is the calm before I take everything, and I closed the laptop. Not yet. Too soon would be obvious. Revenge needed patience, silence, precision. I disappeared that day. No LinkedIn update, no angry emails, no lawsuit. They thought I was broken, unemployed, harmless. 2 weeks later, my former boss received an anonymous audit notice. He frowned when he read it. A week after that, a junior accountant was arrested, someone who used to report to me. I watched the news from my dark apartment, lights off, phone on silent. Interesting, I murmured. My phone buzzed. A private number. I didn't answer, not yet. Because the first rule of revenge is this: let them panic before they see your face. And panic had just begun. The phone kept ringing. I let it ring until silence swallowed it again. Across the city, my former boss, Richard Hale, was learning what fear felt like when it slipped under your skin quietly, like a disease. The audit wasn't random, it was surgical, focused. Every department I had once managed was suddenly under a microscope. I knew where the rot was buried. I helped cover it once, out of loyalty, out of fear, out of survival. Now, I was days past. I lived like a ghost, same clothes, same cheap meals, no visitors, no social media. I became invisible on purpose. Weak men disappear when they're broken. Dangerous men disappear when they're preparing. At night I replayed memories. Richard shaking my hand on my first day. Welcome to the family, he'd said. Family doesn't throw you away like trash. On the 5th day, the news escalated. Hale Industries stock drops 12% amid internal investigation. I leaned back, eyes closed, breathing slow. 12% wasn't punishment, it was a warning knock. My burner phone buzzed again. Different number. This time I answered. Hello, I said, voice small, tired. The voice of a man with nothing left. A pause. It's Richard. There it was. The crack. I was hoping you'd call, I replied softly. You didn't respond to my messages, he said, forcing calm. I just wanted to check on you. 15 years, you know. No hard feelings. I almost laughed. No hard feelings, I repeated. Of course not, sir. He exhaled, relieved. Listen, he said, lowering his voice. There's some confusion happening at the company. Audits. Investigations. I may need your help clarifying a few things. You know how it is. I pictured him pacing his glass office, tie loosened, sweat darkening his collar. You fired me, I said quietly. Yes, but... Security walked me out. Silence. I thought you said my services were no longer required. Another pause. Longer this time? I made a mistake, he said. We can talk compensation. Consultancy. Whatever you want. I smiled into the darkness. I want time, I said. I'm still processing everything. Of course, he replied quickly. Take all the time you need. We hung up. He thought he was negotiating. I was measuring his pulse. That night, I sent the first package, encrypted. Anonymous. Straight to the regulatory authority. Not everything. Just enough to make them dig deeper. The next morning, 2 federal cars parked outside Hale Industries. Employees watched from the windows, whispering, filming. Richard didn't smile anymore. My inbox filled with news alerts. Stock kept falling, partners began distancing themselves, old allies turned cautious, fear has a smell. Once it spreads, everyone starts sniffing the air. I visited my old neighborhood that afternoon. The bar where I used to drink alone after work. Same bartender. Same cracked mirror behind the counter. You disappeared? He said. Needed rest, I replied. He nodded. They say Hale's in trouble? So I heard. He poured my drink without asking. Cheap whiskey. Burned going down. I wasn't celebrating. Revenge isn't joy, it's gravity. It pulls everything to where it belongs. That evening, my former colleague Maya messaged me. She used to sit across from me. Smart, quiet. Ignored it, they're asking questions, she wrote. Sad about you. What are you telling them? I typed back. Read the truth, she replied. That you warned them. My fingers paused. I had warned them. Once. Years ago. About the offshore shell companies. About the falsified earnings. Richard laughed back then. Don't be dramatic, he said. This is how the world works. I closed the chat. Phase 2 began that night. I leaked a timeline. Clean, detailed, easy to understand. Journalists love clarity. Within 48 hours, headlines exploded. Whistleblower documents suggest long-term fraud at Hale Industries. Richard called again. This time he didn't pretend. You did this? He said, voice shaking with rage and fear. I stayed silent. I know it was you, he shouted. You ungrateful bastard! After everything I did for you? You fired me, I said calmly. After 15 years. You should have kept your mouth shut. There it was. The confession recorded, saved, backed up in 3 places. I said nothing more. He hung up. The next week was chaos. Board members resigned. Bank accounts were frozen. Government agencies stepped in. And still, I stayed invisible. That's what hurt them most. They wanted a villain they could point to. A face to hate. A body to crush. I gave them silence. One evening, Maya knocked on my door. She looked thinner. Nervous. They're arresting people, she whispered. You were right all along. I stepped aside and let her in. I'm scared, she said. They're asking who helped you. No one helped me. I replied. They helped themselves. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. You seem different? I am. I offered her tea. She didn't touch it. Richard's trying to make a deal, she said. He's blaming everything on you. Says you manipulated the records. I nodded. I expected that. What are you going to do? I looked past her through the window, at the city lights flickering like dying stars. I'm going to let him try, I said. Because phase 3 wasn't about destroying the company. It was about destroying him. His reputation, his legacy, his belief that he was untouchable. A week later, he was arrested at dawn. Cameras everywhere, wrinkled suit, handcuffs biting into his wrists. He looked straight into the lens. For a moment, just a moment, he looked small. I watched from my couch, unmoving. The weak man he fired would have cheered. The man I had become simply waited. Because this wasn't the end. Not yet. And he still didn't know the worst part. Prison didn't break Richard Hale. Not at first. Men like him don't shatter immediately. They're built on denial, arrogance, the belief that rules exist for other people. Even in handcuffs, he kept his chin high, convinced this was a temporary inconvenience, an error that money and lawyers would erase. That belief was my next target. I attended the hearing anonymously, sitting in the back row, cap pulled low. He didn't see me. He was too busy scanning the room for allies who weren't there anymore. Empty seats spoke louder than any verdict. The judge denied bail. For the first time, Richard's face cracked. Just a little. That night, I opened the final folder on my laptop. The one I hadn't shared with regulators. The one that didn't involve numbers or spreadsheets. People always think money is the sharpest weapon. It's not. Secrets are. I remembered the day Richard called me into his office late, years ago. No windows, no assistants. Just him and a bottle of expensive whiskey. "You're loyal," he said, pouring 2 glasses. "That's rare. I didn't drink. I need someone I can trust," he continued. "Someone who understands discretion." That was the night I learned about the accident. The girl, the settlement, the quiet payment through 3 intermediaries. I'd been young, afraid, grateful to still have my job. I told myself it wasn't my crime. I told myself many lies back then. Now, I was done lying. I met with a journalist 2 days later. Not a headline chaser, an older woman with tired eyes and a reputation for ending careers. "I'm not your source," I said, sliding the documents across the table. "I don't exist." She skimmed the first page. Then the second. "This destroys him," she says. "And you?" I shrug. "I already lost everything once." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll protect you," she said. "But once this runs, there's no undoing it." "I know." The article dropped on a Sunday morning. By noon, Richard's name was everywhere. Not as a CEO, not as a fraudster, but as a man who had killed someone, and buried it. Public sympathy evaporated overnight. His lawyers resigned. His wife released a statement distancing herself. The board issued apologies no one believed. In prison, Richard finally broke. He asked for a meeting. I said yes. The visiting room smelled like bleach and despair. He sat across from me, thinner now, eyes hollow. The glass between us felt unnecessary. He wasn't dangerous anymore. "You came," he said, surprised. "I wanted to see you," I replied. He swallowed. I leaned forward. "So you could look at the man you tried to erase." His hands trembled. "I didn't think." "No," I said softly. "You didn't care?" He shook his head. "I built that company. Gay used me?" I corrected. "Then you discarded me." Silence stretched. "I know it was you," he whispered. "All of it. The audits. The leaks. The article." I smiled. Not cruelly, just honestly. "I warned you once," I said. You laughed. Tears welled in his eyes. "Real this time? What do you want?" he asked. That question told me everything. "I wanted you to feel what it's like," I said. "To wake up one day and realize the ground beneath you is gone, and no one's coming to save you." He pressed his forehead to the glass. "I'm sorry," he said. I stood up. "I don't forgive you," I said calmly. "But I also don't need you anymore." As I walked out, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not happy, free. Outside, the world kept moving. Cars honked. People laughed. Life didn't pause for revenge, it simply absorbed it and moved on. I started over quietly. Consulting. Teaching. Helping small companies avoid becoming monsters. I never used my real name. I didn't want fame. I didn't want praise. Power is best held silently. One evening, months later, Maya called me. "They sentenced him," she said. 25 years. I closed my eyes. "Good," I replied. "There's something else." She hesitated. "The board, they're asking about you. They want to clear your name. Publicly." I thought about it. Then shook my head even though she couldn't see me. "No," I said. "Let them wonder." I hung up and sat in the dark. Revenge stories always end with applause. With fireworks. With victory speeches. This one didn't. It ended with quiet. With a man who learned too late that loyalty, once broken, becomes the most dangerous enemy of all. And as for me, I finally slept through the night. The night before the final verdict, I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear. Because my body finally understood something my mind had known all along. This story was about to close, whether I wanted it to or not. I walked the city until dawn. Same streets I once rushed through with deadlines screaming in my head. Same buildings that had watched me age quietly, while men like Richard grew rich off my silence. By sunrise, my phone vibrated. Verdict confirmed. Sentence upheld. No appeal. I stopped walking. 25 years. A lifetime measured in concrete walls and locked doors. I felt nothing. No triumph. No satisfaction the movies promised. Just stillness. That scared me more than rage ever had. I went home and opened the last envelope on my desk. The one I'd sealed months ago and promised myself I wouldn't open unless absolutely necessary. Inside was a single document. A contingency. Richard had prepared it years ago, his final insurance policy. Accounts. Political favors, judges, prosecutors. Men who bent laws like paper and never paid the price. If this went public, it wouldn't just end him. It would burn an entire ecosystem. I had held onto it for one reason only. Revenge is easy when it's blind. Power is knowing when to stop. That afternoon, a knock came at my door. Not Maya, not a journalist. 2 men in dark suits. Federal. "Would like to talk," one said. I didn't invite them in. "I already gave you everything," I replied. "We know," the other said. "That's why we're here." They exchanged a look before continuing. "Some people believe there's more." I smiled faintly. "There's always more." They leaned closer, lowering their voices. "If you have it, now would be the time." I studied their faces, calm, professional, but underneath, hunger. Everyone wants to be the hero at the end of the story. I closed the door gently. That night I dreamed of my younger self, sitting at that desk 15 years ago, nervous, hopeful, willing to believe loyalty mattered. When I woke up, I finally knew what I had to do. I called the journalist, the same one who had destroyed Richard. "I have one last piece," I said. She didn't speak for a long moment. "This will change everything," she finally said. "Yes," I replied. "But not the way they expect." The article was published 3 days later. Not as an expose, as a confession. Anonymous. Precise. Cold. It didn't name everyone, just enough. Enough to prove the system was sick. Enough to show Richard wasn't a monster alone, he was a symptom. The public reaction was nuclear. Investigations exploded outward. Resignations followed. Careers ended overnight. Men who once felt immortal suddenly remembered they were fragile. And me, I vanished. No interviews, no book deals. No victory lap. I withdrew every digital trace of myself like a ghost erasing footprints in fresh snow. Months later, I stood at the edge of the ocean, coat pulled tight, watching waves destroy themselves endlessly against the shore. A message arrived on my phone. Unknown number. "He knows it was you." I didn't reply. "Enough?" He asked if you'd visit. I stared at the water for a long time. Then I typed 2 words. "No need." Because the truth was simple. The moment Richard dismissed me, he lost. Not when he was arrested. Not when he was sentenced. Not when his name became poison. He lost when he underestimated silence. People think revenge is about destruction. It isn't. It's about reclaiming authorship. They wrote me as weak, disposable, forgettable. I rewrote myself as inevitable. Somewhere, behind concrete and bars, Richard Hale wakes up every morning knowing one thing. The man he tried to erase didn't just survive. He dismantled an empire and walked away without leaving a name. That is the kind of ending that never really ends. Because men like me don't need revenge anymore. We become the consequence.